Are you struggling for consistency in your sim racing? Does your iRating look like a roller coaster? If so, we have good news for you. The way to get more consistent is to first understand what you're doing differently than the professionals. And VRS is the answer. With our competitive subscription, you will have the telemetry, setups, tutorials, and everything else you need to fully analyze your driving. Our data packs and the ability to compare your driving with the best in the world will show you exactly where to adjust your inputs, change your driving line, and shave seconds off of your lap times. And our powerful and precise Direct Force Pro wheelbase and precision pedals are being used by some of the world's best drivers. All these champions agree that VRS hardware is not just the best on the market, it's also priced well below the competition. So if you're looking to upgrade to direct drive and the best pedals in sim racing, VRS is your answer. If you want to get better, get faster, and make it happen sooner rather than later, you owe it to yourself to find out why so many people are switching to VRS. You'll be so glad that you did. Visit www.virtualracingschool.com and learn why the best use VRS.
Well, good evening, everyone. Welcome back to the Ray Esports Racing League here on Apex Racing TV. My name is Ron Mullins. Joining me in the commentary booth, as usual, is Charles Bichelle, and in the virtual production hall, however, old friend Joshua Wilkie. Tonight, we're at Mid-Ohio, running on the layout with the chicane right before the keyhole, which more or less follows a line that this circuit ran since its opening back in the 60s all the way up until 1986. It's an added challenge and an extra area to slip up if you're one of these drivers. That would not be ideal for the drivers first up tonight in the Formula cars, as tonight is a final race of the season before the runoffs coming up on June the 4th in only 2 weeks time. Charles, these Formula cars have always been the tale of two races. The Formula Fords, which have had smaller fields all throughout the season, and much calmer races compared to the Formula Vs, which have been a madhouse all season long. So now that we're at the end of the season with a lot of these drivers running at a track that they're accustomed to, would you expect these races and their differences to be exemplified, or do you think they're actually going to be a little bit similar here tonight?
I think they're going to be a little similar tonight. We talked, I was kind of reading the Discord for the league the couple of days before this. We ran here for the Weekend Warriors, and the Spec Racer on Sunday had a fantastic race. We had a tie for pole down to the thousandth of a second. So, and then it was just a battle from the top six cars battled the entire race. Great race to watch if you want to go back and watch it. There's a little bit of a track change. Obviously, they went with the standard layout, which is what you would normally see if you're watching Indy here. No chicane. The chicane runs basically it's a SCCA specific. I think they just ran here in real life over the last week or two, and the chicane was there. So these guys that are real life drivers are probably very familiar with that layout if they've ran Mid-Ohio before. So it's going to be a fun race. Obviously, we'll talk about the multi-class aspect where the two classes of Formula Ford and Formula Vs are about 11 seconds difference as far as lap time. So that means that we'll be navigating traffic again, which always is a little bit complex when we're dealing with these. And on a tight track like this, it may even make that a little more difficult.
This track is old school and Americana in the way that it was built, the way it was designed all the way back in the 60s, and the way that it still is today. And Charles, you are correct. The Hoosier Super Tour ran here this past weekend, so a lot of drivers, including Zach Rivard, who has joined us here this evening, ran this past weekend at this track, which compared to this version in iRacing, which has the much older asphalt, they recently repaved it, I believe, this past winter. So much newer asphalt that they have in real life. So it's kind of an apples to orange comparison, comparing the sim to real life here for this version of Mid-Ohio. However, it's still going to be a fantastic race that we have going for you this evening. We're in this qualifying session right now, and we still have a little bit of ways left to go. So I think we should probably mention some of the sponsors here from the Ray Esports Racing League. We have the wonderful fortune of having fantastic sponsors that support this series, whether it be here with the Formula Cars, with the Formula Fords, and the Formula Vs, the Spec Racer Fords that aren't running with us this evening, but will be running in 1 week's time when the series rocks up for the final race before the runoffs at Watkins Glen, and also the Spec Miatas later on this evening. We have some fantastic sponsors here with the Ray Esports Racing League, one of them being Sim Motion. They've been with us ever since the Formula Cars started here at the Ray Esports Racing League back in season 10, only one season ago, and they're still with us, and here's a little word about them.
Oh yeah, that was Cabanca last time.
Now, Sim Motion is not only the sponsor of the official Formula 1600 series here on iRacing, but is a proud partner of the Formula 1600s here from the Ray Esports Racing League. And a quick little note on Sim Motion as well. Darren Ganji, who's the owner of Sim Motion, is actually celebrating his birthday today. So happy birthday, Darren, if you're listening to this. And thank you so much for your continuous support of the Ray Esports Racing League. They're the sponsor of the Formula 1600s, and over in the Formula Vs that we're following right now, heading through turn number 13, heading their way into the carousel. Right about now, the wonderful sponsor we have for those cars is trailbreak.com. In the world of racing, telemetry is important in understanding your car and your driving, and it's why many people in the market take their butts on over to trailbreak.com. Trailbreak has been in the racing data world since 2000. Considering that's 4 years older than myself, I can vouch that's more than enough time for them to build a fantastic catalog of products. Whether you're in the world of karting, autocross, road racing, hill climbs, or track night in America, there's something there to help you go faster. To shop or just explore what they have to offer, head on over to trailbreak.com. Trailbreak.com is a sponsor of the Formula Vs and a proud partner of the Ray Esports Racing League. We'd like to thank Sim Motion and Trailbreak.com for their wonderful support of this series. It's fantastic to have some great sponsors as well. And they have a whole lot of Microns there. I think actually, if I were still karting, I'd probably end up buying a Micron 5 from them for my kart. And look at this hornet's nest of Formula Vs. It's a good thing we were talking about that sponsor. We wouldn't see this fantastic racing even in this qualifying session if we didn't have some fantastic sponsors. This is Brian Straczynski. We're following him riding on board the number 84 car, heading his way through turn number 6 and 7 right now. He's currently second here in this qualifying session at a 142.834. Not a very long way off our current provisional pole sitter, that being Andrew Love. Very, very incredibly close in that Formula V category. That just shows you these Formula V races are always nuts, always close, and extremely competitive.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is what you expect for the Formula Vs. The way they race, they're usually packed up. So it's not really a surprise that we've only got basically a 200ths of a second gap between P1 and P2, and then it's a pretty tight field all the way down to the bottom. So I was watching as we were doing our advertising. We were kind of chatting amongst ourselves about Christian Cabanca sitting on pole for Formula Fords, and I got him confused a little bit with Zach Rivard. Zach Rivard is in the Formula Ford grid, but he has not set a time, and I'm not sure he realizes that he doesn't set a qualifying time. He's going to have to start behind the Formula Vs, and that really cost Cabanca the win last week. So it's going to be tough sledding if he has to start back there. I think he just got a lap in, so luckily enough to just get P5 on the board, which is what he wants, as he's going to be in front of all the Formula V's. So it's one less talking point that we'll have during the race.
That was a fantastic storyline from the Laguna Seca race, just seeing Christian Cabanca not only have to cut through the Formula V's when dealing with the lap traffic in the later stages of that race, but also having to do it at the very start. We were actually having a chat with Christian Cabanca at the end of that broadcast, having an interview with him before he wrapped things up that week, and we just had to ask him, like, what was he thinking seeing Formula V's go, like, I think it was 4 or maybe even 5 wide at the very start of that race. It was absolute pandemonium in the Formula V's, and you can see right now Miles Grab being held up by a little bit of Formula V traffic. I believe that's Michelle Lynn and Josh Justice swapping spaces on this racetrack, going through the tight twisty section. Miles Grab looking to tow back to the pits. But this track is I personally love this track of the wonderful circuits that we have on this schedule here for season 11 of the Esports Racing League. It's one of only 2 that I've visited in real life. I'm on the autocross side of things with the SCCA, so I haven't actually gone out to the SCCA runoffs just yet. I probably will go this year, just being a part of this series. I feel like I have to, and meet the wonderful people from this series. But Mid-Ohio, I went to it once, and funnily enough, it was for a motorcycle race, and they're running on this exact layout. But getting back to talking about this track and the way it is, it's really a tale of 2 halves, because you have this opening section of the lap where you have some long straightaways, of course, this chicane that these drivers have to negotiate before the keyhole, interrupting one of the long straightaways on this lap. But then you have that back straightaway, which is absolutely massive. You have a fast first half to this lap, and then you're just dealing with tight, twisty sections all throughout the second half. It is it's going to create some very dramatic moments, I must say. What do you think, Charles?
Oh yeah, absolutely. That chicane does really kind of shunt the momentum. These Formula V cars obviously draft really well, so they'll get kind of held up a little bit on that second straight after turn 1 and before you get into the keyhole. But then you'll get the nice long straight going down into China Beach, and good braking, good passing opportunity there. You make the move to the inside. So it'll be interesting to see how they approach it. But it's a very, like you said, the second half of this track is extremely technical. It's very tight. There's not really, we saw some really good 2 wide racing in the race on Sunday, and so there's potential is there, but then there's some corners that you just really can't run 2 wide. You're going to have to get single file and wait for the next opportunity to make a move, especially when you get down into Thunder Valley. It's a very tight technical section of the course. And there's like I said, there's no real room for passing. You're doing everything you can just to maintain a proper line. So trying to look for an alternate line to make a move around potentially a slower car, not really going to work for you.
This track is just so tough. There's a whole lot of challenge thrown into this small little circuit here in the middle of nowhere in Ohio. I felt like I was driving through the Twilight Zone getting to this track when I visited it back in 2021. 2.4 miles, not a whole lot of breathing room if you're one of these drivers in this race here this evening. Only 15 cars that we have, 5 Formula Fords and 10 Formula V's, but still, it is going to be a hectic race. 15 corners in all, and we've got some 20 minutes of racing action right in front of us. So the checkered flag is out here in this qualifying session. We're just waiting for some cars to finish up their qualifying session, getting a bit more added seat time. I see Mark Sherman hasn't actually set a lap. He's the 1 car left out there on the circuit, so just getting a little bit of seat time. Not sure if that's a good call or not to start at the back. I think if you're in the midfield of one of these classes, whether it be the Formula Fords or the Formula V's, it is going to be a very manic first lap of this race, trying to deal with going through turn number 1, heading through that chicane right before the keyhole, which is like threading the eye of the needle with the needle attached to a Saturn V rocket traveling at escape velocity. It is a matter of luck getting through that corner. It is so tricky to try and go through there correctly. And then the keyhole, as as well. That is tough, but the qualifying session has wrapped up, and because we have a shortened pace lap, we have to burn through this as quickly as possible. Here's a starting grid for tonight's races. In the Formula Fords, it's Christian Kabanka starting this race from the pole at a 131.255 lap time in the number 178 car. He's going to be leading them to green with Miles Crab in P number 2, Stevie Ray in 3rd, Wayne Buttermore in 4th, Zach Rivard starting in 5th. He's going to be the comeback story all throughout this race. He'll be running at the Formula Ford field.
Yeah, in the Formula V field, Andrew Love is on pole with a 142.816. Only about 200 seconds behind is Brian Stasinski. Jacob Schilling in 3rd, Josh Justice in 4th, Charlie Vaccaro in 5th, Andrew Wozencroft in 6th, Trip Isley in 7th, Donnie Isley in 8th, Corey Heffron in 9th, Jim Brewster 10th, Michelle in 11th, Seth Bowman in 12th, Joaquin Effinger in 13th, Mark Sherman in 14th, and Tom Laurie rounds out your 15-car Formula V grid.
So I actually undersold it. We have 20 cars on the circuit here this evening. We'll see if all of them take the start. I hope they will. I'm sure they will. It's going to be a very packed field. And I will say we haven't gone over the championship points. Sadly, we had a small old graphical issue. We cannot bring you the championship points graphics that we usually have. However, I will say in the Formula Vs, Jay King has a pretty good lead entering this final race, but he's not with us. So I'm trying to do the quick math in my head, it's about 19 points separating Jay King and Miles Crab. Now with Miles Crab running in this race and starting in P number 2, that is going to be close. Meanwhile, over in the Formula Vs, Andrew Wozencroft is leading them at the moment, only 7 points. I have Jim Brewster there in P number 2. That is going to be a dogfight in that category as well. We're gonna have some close quarters racing, probably some fisticuffs to break out as well, but 20 minutes of exciting racing right in front of us, and it's gonna start right now. The green flag is out, the drivers are on their way, and it's already an aggressive start for Zach Rivard. He's making it 3 wide with Stevie Ray and Wayne Buttermore already. Meanwhile, for the front 2, it's Miles Crab and Christian Kabanka trading blows heading through turn number 1 right now. Now they're going to head their way into that chicane, still side by side. Kabanka and Crab battling as hard as they can. Meanwhile, in the Formula Vs, it is a hornet's nest right now. It's Andrew Love leading them, heading through the chicane to begin this first lap of the race. I see Josh Justice battling hard with Brian Jasinski, and there's contact in the midfield and more contact made. That's a 221 around. Michelle Lynn may have gotten a piece of that as well. That was Andrew Wozencroft. That was kind of the beginning of that incident in the number 80 car. So the driver that entered this race with a points lead in the Formula V category is going to be on the back foot massively at the very beginning of this race.
Yeah, it's going to lose a lot of time. It looked like they were just fighting for the same little piece of apex there going into the keyhole. Wozencroft on the inside. I think Michelle maybe just came over a little bit too far, made wheel-to-wheel contact. Don't think there's any damage to the car, to either one of the cars, but obviously that's going to put Wozencroft in a bit of a hole, trying to make up that amount of time to get back up to the front. He's down 11 seconds already.
That's going to be a heck of a challenge, but hey, in these Formula V races, anything can happen between now and the checkered flag. This is a Formula Fords, and we have got a dogfight on our hands. Zach Rivard in P3, Miles Crab in P2, and Christian Kabanka leading them at the end of lap number 1. By the time they come back to start lap 3 in 1 lap's time, this order and grid could be entirely different. Zach Rivard trying to find a way to get past Miles Crab. They're going to be side by side on the exit of turn number 1. He may be able to clear him heading into the chicane, and he does. Nice moves from Zach Rivard on the exit of turn number 1. That's a real tricky corner, especially on this scan of Mid-Ohio with asphalt patchier around this track than my face when I was 14. So Zach Rivard cutting his way through already up to second. I think we have some replays of some stuff that happened farther in the back, some incidents, some overtakes, and a whole bunch of schmozzles that happened on lap number 1. This is a Wozencroft incident that we saw heading his way through that chicane of turn 2 and 3 there, and just it was that's tough to call there. Wozencroft was clipped.
Yeah, had it backwards. Actually, Wozencroft was ahead, and Michelle kind of looked to the inside, and maybe Wozencroft came in a little tight, just tightened it up, but it was still just wheel-to-wheel contact. Looks like, like I said, they're both still running. Obviously, Wozencroft got the worst end of that, and it looks like he is trying to make up a little bit of the gap. So he's made up a little bit of time already. But once again, it's only a 20-minute race, so he doesn't have a long time to try and make up that stagger.
The other half of that incident was Charles Vaccaro in the 221 car, and he's now gone into the pits. I believe he is out of it, so we have 13 cars left in that Formula V fight unless we see Charlie Vaccaro rejoin the race. I don't believe we will. We're down to 13 cars in the Formula Vs. We still have the 5 that we started off in the Formula Fords, and at the very front of the Formula Vs, it's Josh Justice leading over Andrew Love, who's right in front of Jacob Schilling there in P number 3, with Brian Straczynski right behind them looking to pick up the pieces if there's any sort of contact between the podium runners, trying to find his way back into the podium position side by side with Justice and Love heading through that final section at the end of lap number 3. These drivers will find any section of this race course to go side by side. Mid-Ohio is not the widest race course in the world, but with how small these Formula V cars are, it pretty much turns it into a go-kart track. So all these drivers have plenty of opportunities if they want to go side by side. We're seeing that in the Formula Vs. Zach Rivard trying to sweep around the outside of Christian Gabanka, heading through turn number 6. He keeps it at China Beach, keeps it on the road, and gets into P number 1. So Zach Rivard, the driver who wants to start at the back of the field just because he wanted a little bit of a challenge, has now got his way into the lead of this race. However, it's certainly not over. The slipstream in these Formula Fords, we saw it in the Formula Ford Weekend Warriors this past Sunday. It is strong in those Formula Fords. Forget that. We've got this fight in the Formula Vs between Justice and Love side by side into turn number 6. Who's going to prevail in this fight? Is Schilling going to try and look to pick up the pieces? If these two come to blows, they're still going to be side by side with Love on the inside of turn number 7. They're very close. I thought they nearly made contact heading through that corner. They're going to make contact here. Got a beautiful view of the inside of Josh Justice's Formula V car there from the back of Andrew Love's number 945. But Love is leading them in the Formula V category. And just to finish off my point in the Formula Fords that I'm trying to remember right now, we saw in the Formula Ford Weekend Warriors this past Sunday at Imola how, despite the fact that the Formula Fords don't have much as powerful of a slipstream effect as the Formula Vs do, it is still there and it's still a little bit pwned. And here at a track like this, those drivers are going to look to try and use that slipstream to absolute perfection to try and grab the win.
Yeah, absolutely. You can get a pretty decent little slip coming down the front straight, start finish straight. Not as much like as we talked about with the chicane coming between turn 1 and the keyhole. Obviously, that big long run out of the keyhole down to China Beach is where a lot of these cars are making their moves. You can just kind of see these Formula Vs basically swapping those lead positions every lap almost. Just, and it's going to be a race as hard as you can until you get to the last couple of laps, and the strategy is going to kind of kick in. But Rivard obviously did a great job getting up to the front of the field. That was a nice little patient move that he made on Crab. Just kind of let off coming down the front straight. Was able to just kind of let the car settle a little bit quicker, get a good exit out of turn 1, and was able to make that pass coming up through the chicane and into turn 2.
Ooh, I think we're going to have an Isley fight here heading into turn number 6. Donnie Isley getting the move done on Corey Heffron to move into P number 7 in the Formula V category. And now he's right behind his namesake Trip Isley there in the number 5 car. Those two, they've been giving each other lessons all throughout this race. Donnie Isley, the father, Trip Isley, the son. And those two have been talking all throughout the practice sessions. I was doing a little bit of espionage during the practice sessions, just hearing what these drivers were saying to each other, and Donnie was giving a whole lot of advice all throughout the practice session. It's clearly helping them. They're running in P6 and P7 right now. They're at the north end of the second pack in the Formula Vs as we see Rivard and Gabanka going side by side heading into turn number 6. These two drivers have broken away from Miles Crab and P number 3. Miles Crab is currently about 3.5 seconds off of our leader Rivard towards the beginning of lap number 5 here. We haven't hit the halfway mark of this race just yet. We've already seen a whole lot of drama develop so far, and I think with this fight between Gabanka and Rivard, it is far from over.
Oh yeah, I absolutely, still another, 12 and a half minutes left, and obviously Gabanka showed his pace in the car last week at Laguna Seca, and we've seen Zach. He's just, he drives his car. Oh, he's just, what a catch. I mean, that was about as far sideways you can get without wrecking the car. Was able to gather it back up, lost a spot, but he'll just reset, let his tires cool off, and he'll start working Gabanka again. But it was a great catch by Rivard. And obviously, we've talked to him before about him being drives his car in real life. So he uses the sim for a lot of training and testing. And so it looks like he's put a few laps here at Mid-Ohio already.
He's got a whole lot of experience. A lot of these drivers have driven around this racetrack, both in the sim and in real life as well. Jacob Schilling has moved up into P2 in the Formula V category. The front four have broken away. They're all separated by less than a second from the leader of Love. However, the gap between themselves and Jim Brewster in P5 has grown to about a second and a half. I think we're going to take a look at a replay of Zach Rivard in this fantastic save. He ran wide heading through turn 13, hit that outside curb and did a little bit lawn mowing, then mega sideways heading through the carousel of turn number 14, doing the smoke screen effect on Christian Gabanka right behind. I think it worked. It didn't really work out for Zach Rivard with that slide. However, he has retaken the lead in the Formula Ford category. But one thing we have to keep in mind as well, you can see all the Formula Fords are in red. That means these drivers at the front of the Formula Vs are at risk of going a lap down. It's going to happen at some point. It's going to happen very, very soon. So I think probably not this lap, but maybe in a couple laps, that's going to be when we're going to see the Formula Ford and Formula V convergence. And this here is a replay of Zach Rivard retaking the lead from Christian Gabanka. It looks like he's going to go for the move around the outside into turn number 6. It's a bold move. It's about last late breakers. It shows that Zach Rivard has a whole lot of confidence in that race car behind him. These two drivers are incredibly fast. Christian Gabanka nearly won in that Formula Ford Weekend Warriors race that we mentioned earlier on in this broadcast, and he's giving Rivard probably the biggest challenge we've seen in quite some time, side by side through the entirety of that turn 6, 7, and 8 section. There they finally single file out, heading into turn 9 through the S's and then into Thunder Valley of 11 and 12. But man, that was a very hard fought fight. It's another hard fought fight at the front of the Formula Vs. We're coming up to the halfway mark time wise of this race right now. 10 minutes in, 10 minutes left to go, and it's Schilling leading them in the Formula Vs, and a dogfight continuing in the Formula Fords. Rivard and Gabanka once again going side by side. These two drivers are not letting off each other, and I wonder if they keep battling as hard as they have been through the past few moments of this race, will Miles Crabb get involved in that as well? Because that gap was about 3.5 seconds. It is closed up by about a half a second with these two trading sucker punch blows to each other. And I think Brian Straczynski has fallen out. He has some sort of issue. He's dropped down the running order. We may have to take a look at a replay. But Charles, do you think that Miles Crabb may get involved in this Formula Ford fight with how Rivard and Gabanka have been fighting each other so hard?
Yeah, it's the combination of that and the fact they're coming up on the back of the Formula V field, and those cars are still bunched together pretty closely. So it's going to be pick a lane and try and work your way through there. You've got a little group of 3 or 4 here they're going to be coming up on, and then they'll get to that bulk of those battle packs up toward the front of the Formula V field, and it's going to make things a lot trickier. And yeah, if Crabb if they get kind of caught up in the wrong portion of the track, it's going to make Crabb's job a lot easier to try and make up the stagger to get up there and battle possibly.
We're seeing Brian Straczynski drop down to P11 in that Formula V category. Here's a replay of what happened to him. He was involved in that top 4 pack, and this is heading through into the carousel of turn number 14. I think one of the hardest corners around this racetrack, and goes for a spin there. It's not the first spin we've seen at that section as of late. Our producer Josh Wilkie can attest to that, as he had a moment heading through that section in the Spec Racer Ford Weekend Warriors race. I say that knowing fully well that he will probably limit my volume here on this broadcast just because I mentioned it. But Straczynski there getting caught out by the very challenging turn at number 12. He's fallen back in that Formula V fight and is feeling pressure from Stevie Ray, about to go a lap down to the rest of the Formula Ford pack. He's dropped down to P11, got a move put on by Andrew Rosencroft, going down that back straightaway right before he cuts to that replay. So not ideal for Straczynski, who is looking like a very good challenger for those podium positions. He has dropped down like a rock, and oh my god, here it is, the convergence, the lap traffic. This can make or break your race in these Formula races here in the Ray Esports Racing League. Rivard trying to manage that gap, if not grow it, as they negotiate the final few Formula V cars here with only 7.5 minutes left to go, a little bit under that in fact. This is going to be the only time that they have to deal with the entire Formula V field when it comes to lap traffic. So Zach Rivard looking to try and capitalize, try not to lose a lot of time, because you can very easily diminish a gap or just grow it dramatically if you're dropping back like a rock. You can see the speed difference going down into turn number 6. And ooh, we may see Kabanka go for a move on Rivard. It looked very close there. They single file out heading into turn number 6. But we just mentioned how the lap traffic can make or break your race. Miles Crab, the gap between these two and Miles Crab in P number 3 was down to about 2.3 seconds at the very beginning of this lap. It's already stretched back out to 3.5. So the lap traffic an absolute killer here in these races.
Yeah, absolutely. I was watching the same thing, just seeing if Crab was going to be able to make up some of that time, and initially did as they were working through the chicane, trying to get through the lap traffic. But once they got out of the keyhole, it just seemed like Crab kind of got bottled up a little bit and ended up losing time as opposed to gaining time, which is, it's all part of multi-class racing. You have to be very careful. This is also right here. You're going side by side through the corners with slower traffic, and both of you are slowing down, trying to make sure you don't run into each other, as well as actually make the corner and try and get out. And Crab, that was very tight there. That was Stevie Ray, excuse me, trying to get through there and managed to do it successfully without anybody getting wrecked. So great job on all those guys trying to get through there. As you said, the carousel, very, very difficult portion of the track, even single file.
And the Formula Ford traffic has just pretty much entirely upended the Formula V fights. We saw a pack of 4. It was Justice, Schilling, Love, and Straczynski involved in that front 4 peloton at the very north end of the Formula V field. That's broken away, as it's now Justice and Schilling that are well clear of Andrew Love, who's dropped down like a rock, still running in P3. However, he is well clear of those drivers running in P1 and P2. And now we've got fights between Donnie Isley and Corey Heffron battling for that final top 5 spot in the Formula V category, side by side heading into turn at number 6. Again, heading into 7. Heffron has that inside line. Isley looking for the switchback, trying to pull it off, sticking it around the outside. A little bit of contact made as well. These drivers breaking at their fisticuffs. We have 5 minutes left to go here, so it could be the reason why these drivers are starting to feel a little bit aggressive again. This is the final Formula race of the season before we go out to Indianapolis. I don't know why I broke out Canadian accent there very briefly. Go out to Indianapolis Motor Speedway for the runoffs in 2 weeks' time. So these drivers are going to be quite aggressive. They're going to try and force the issue here, and I wonder if the fact that we're at the 9 stages of the season, I wonder if it's going to affect the battles at the very north end of both of these fields. Our points leader in the Formula V category entering this race, that being Andrew Rosencroft. He's down in P number 10. That is good for Jim Bruce, who entered this race in P number 2 in the points, as running 4th in the Formula V category as it stands at the moment, effectively in no man's land, with Andrew Love right in front of him, trying to find a way to get himself into the podium positions. In the Formula Fords, meanwhile, Rivard and Kabanka, they haven't been running full time. They're not really involved in a championship fight, so I think these two are just going to be trading. They're going to be trading uppercuts in the final stages of this race. It's going to be awesome to watch. However, I would not be too shocked if I see both of those cars spear off the track in a cloud of steam, dust, and carbon fiber bits.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me at all. They're racing really hard, but everything's been clean so far. No contact between the cars, but you can just see the power of what little bit of draft they get going down through there. It's just easy to just make the pass and go by. And so now you got to wonder, is maybe Kabanka just going to kind of lay back and wait for that last lap before he makes his move, knowing that if he can get by in China Beach, it's going to be very difficult for Rivard to get back around before the end of the race. And then, and Schilling and Justice down in the Formula V field they basically just checked out. And so you got Brewster just past Love to take over the 3rd spot. And but it's Schilling and Justice up front, and that'll be a battle to the end of the race as well, probably.
We've got some dog fights forming here. It's very much like a Top Gun movie, except with race cars instead of planes. With that terrible analogy out of the way, we can tackle the final few laps of this race. Only 2.5 minutes left to go here, so the issue is going to be forced a lot with these drivers. The Schilling and Justice fight is going to be intense. The Brewster and Love fight is going to be awesome to watch as well. Brewster up into P number 3, and that would help him quite a lot in that championship. He was only 7 points behind the 10th place runner of Andrew Wozencroft entering this final race for the Formula cars this season. So that is going to help out Jim Brewster in that number 933 car dramatically when it comes to that championship fight. I think we may be on 2 to go here. I'm trying to do the math in my head. Is this 2 to go, or do we have 3 laps to go? Are we coming to the 2 to go this time by? I am not too sure. I think we are on 2 to go. Either way, these drivers are quite aggressive. Love and Brewster side by side going down this back straightaway, and Love clears him. It shows you how powerful that Formula V slipstream is. We may see another game of leapfrog develop a little bit farther behind. The Isleys continuing to battle with Heffron. Heffron is in Isley sandwich right now. I'm not sure how he feels about that. He may be feeling a lot of pressure here, and actually applied some pressure to the back of Isley's car. And it looked like contact again heading through turn number 7. These drivers feeling quite racy and quite aggressive towards the end of the season and towards the end of this race as well. Heffron in P at number 6. Isley, that final driver, running in the top 5 in P, well, number 5. And then besides these 3, Michelle Lynn a little bit farther back, they're running in no man's land. So I think they're going to give it everything they absolutely can in the later stages of this race. I think we may be on the white flag lap. So Zach Rivard is going to be taking the white flag. Actually, he already has. And now they're going to side by side, heading into turn at number 6. Cabanca looking for the move on the inside, maybe trying to go for the switchback as they go over the hill and ran their way through 7 and 8. Very close stuff. Cabanca, he may try and force the issue here. He may be hoping for a spin, a half spin that Rivard had earlier on in this race. That Formula V lap traffic farther up the road, that is not a factor. I think it's actually going to be very close between them taking the checkered or the white this time by. I'll assume they're taking the checkered because with 20 seconds left to go, actually it is going to be very, very close. Rivard running wide heading through turn number 13. That is not going to help out his chances at all. There's 10 seconds left to go on that clock. The Formula V traffic did get involved. However, they got out of the way at a fairly opportune time, and it's borderline, but they have taken the white flag here. There's only about 4 seconds left to go between them taking the white and the checkered. Either way, these drivers are giving it absolutely everything they've got. They're abusing the track limits. They're going to be being and banging and roughing each other up and going side by side, heading into the chicane. Cabanca is not going to let this one go. That probably wasn't the smartest move if you want to go for it heading through the chicane. He should try and focus his attention on this back straightaway. It's the longest straightaway on this lap and the most important one as well. He's going to savor that slipstream. He needs to be bold on the brakes. He needs to be aggressive here, and he needs to try and get the move done if he wants to win this race. Cabanca closing in, closing in, closing in. Is he going to go for the move? Is he going to go for the dive? No, he does not. So Cabanca still closed up that gap a decent amount, however, so they're going to be very close heading through the tight, twisty section to round out this lap. That Formula V car farther up the road, I believe that may be Joaquin Effinger. Oh, as Cabanca now gets a move done, I think Rivard got mega sideways, or maybe Rivard is running out of gas. He's dropped down like a rock. I think Zach Rivard may have cut it a bit too close when it comes to that fuel. That or he had a slowdown. Either way, I'm again, I think, he's out of gas. He is puttering to a hold. Zach Rivard, oh, that is absolutely torturous for the driver of the 27 car. He was putting on a fantastic drive. However, sadly for him, it looks like he's going to fall out of the podium positions as well. But this man, Christian Cabanca, that he was trading blows with throughout that entire race, Cabanca makes up for the difficulty that he had in the Formula Ford Weekend Warriors race this past weekend and wins here from the Ray Esports Racing League at Mid-Ohio. Now in the Formula V's, it's Schilling and Justice on the last lap of this race. They're going to be side by side heading into turn number 6. My colleague Charles is probably taking a bathroom break with how long I've been running my math here. Justice Schilling side by side here. Who is going to prevail in this fight? Justice going to have that inside line heading through turn number 7, but Schilling is not going to give it up, trying to get the switchback done as they round and crest that hill. A little bit of a lockup. I think that may have been from one of those drivers, and their nose to tail there coming through turn number 8 and 9, about to head their way through the S's, and Thunder Valley right behind them. Love and Brewster have continued to trade blows, with Love moving up to P number 3 and Brewster back to 4th. Brewster probably won't mind that too bit. As much as he wants a podium, that is still going to help him out a lot when it comes to that championship fight. Schilling, it looked like he was going to try and go for the move around the outside of turn number 13. Now he's looking to go around the outside of turn 14. This is bold stuff from the driver of the number 85 car, but it may be too little too late. Josh Justice rounding his way around that final corner, and Josh Josh Justice. It's going to be a photo finish. In fact, it is Justice taking the win there. That was way too close for Josh Justice's comfort. It was only a tenth of a second separating those two after 22 minutes of heart-pumping racing action. Andrew Love ran at your podium in third, and Jim Brewster ended up in fourth, which, if I'm very much mistaken, would probably give him the championship in that Formula V category, with Wozencroft ending up in P number 9. But man, Charles, I'll let you get a word in edgewise, which you haven't done for the past like 5 minutes. I apologize for that. And man, that was a very dramatic finish.
It was a very dramatic finish. Obviously, a little anticlimactic in the Formula Vs with Rivard running out of fuel in the final lap. But yeah, Justice and Schilling made up for that in spades. It was a great run. You could just see Rivard. He was just looking. It was him and Kubanka, and it was just basically who was going to play the right strategy. And then Rivard just says, "Well, I don't have anything else to play with, so I'm just going to have to let it go and to let Kubanka take the win." And then it was just a matter of, can I get the car to keep rolling long enough for me to cross the finish line? And thankfully did. We still got a podium out of it. Obviously, he's coming in here to get race wins. Third is going to feel very bad when you've been battling for the lead the entire race. But allowed Crab to get through and get the P2, and Rivard to come in and just slow roll around and still have a nice, comfortable finish ahead of Stevie Ray in fourth. And just I was trying to get to the downhill section here and get the car to just let gravity give the assist and finish at a very, very slow rate of knots.
I think he ended his one qualifying lap in very similar fashion. Of course, Zach Rivard was not intending on that being the end of his race. However, that's what it came to be. So I think all the cars have taken the checkered flag. So we'll quickly go over the results before we move on to interviews, and then later move on to the Spec Miata race coming up later on this evening. Christian Kubanka ends up winning it overall in that number 178 car, as Zach Rivard said in the YouTube chat. Those two were giving each other hell. Kubanka ends up the one that wins out in that fight. Miles Crab ends up in a shocking P2 thanks to Zach Rivard's running out of fuel at the dying stages of that race. Still ended up about 6 seconds back of our winner Kubanka. Zach Rivard puttering to the line ends up in P number 3. Stevie Ray, series admin, ends up in 4th. Wayne Buttermore is going to round at the Formula Fords in P number 5. Then the Formula Vs, it's Josh Justice winning it there. A hard-fought fight between himself and Jacob Schilling. Andrew Love ends up in the final podium position in the V's in P number 3 in that category, and P8 overall. Jim Brewster, who I think will probably be the Formula V champion, ends up in 9th overall, and Corey Heffron will round out your overall top 10.
Yeah, Donnie Isley in 11th, Michelle Lynn in 12th, Trip Isley in 13th, Andrew Wozencroft 14th, did end up P9 in the Formula V class. Seth Bowman in 15th, Brian Stasinski in 16th, Joaquin Effinger in 17th, and Mark Sherman in 18th, Charlie Vaccaro 19th, and Tom Laurie did not take the start, so he'll end up in P20.
You know, before we move on to the interviews here, I just want to say you saw Michelle Lynn there in P number 12, and she's actually organizing a Formula V race that's going to end up here on Apex Racing TV in a couple of weeks' time. You should check out the Ray Esports Discord server if you want to find out about a charity race racing for a very good cause in about a week's time. So we have some drivers waiting in the interview waiting area. Charles, would you like to have a chat with our overall winner, that being Christian Kubanka?
Yeah, let's absolutely talk with Christian. Christian, congratulations overall, number 1 in the Formula Ford, and a really good battle between you and Rivard for pretty much the entire race until the last lap.
Yeah, even though I'm glad that I won the race, to be honest, I think the real winner is Zach, because he was a little bit quicker than me, especially through the keyhole. I just could not get a run out of those corners to get side by side with him to the backstretch. But he just didn't put enough fuel into the car, so I just got lucky in that sense. But it was a good fun race, and hopefully the battles were shown in the broadcast.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we were watching it. We caught Zach's mega save through the carousel and allowed you to get back in front. It's like he was maybe not the best line through there for a couple of laps, but yeah, but it seemed like for us at least, it was pretty competitive. Like you were at least close enough that you could keep it interesting and can move out front occasionally. So for us, it was a fantastic race.
Yeah, and yeah, that's good. Hopefully, yeah, I was happy that we were able to give a great show. I'm surprised at that instance that I was able, when Zach got loose, I was surprised I was able to avoid him. I thought we were going to wreck, but I was just lucky that his car kind of tracked out and I was able to go through without any incident.
Yeah, so chicane or no chicane, just out of curiosity?
To keep it diplomatic, it depends on the car, but for me, no chicane.
Okay, fair enough. So
I need another passing opportunity. So
there you go. All right, Christian, congratulations. You have anybody you want to give a shout out to tonight?
Actually, before this interview, Stevie told me to give thanks to everyone that participated. So on Stevie's behalf, thanks for everyone for participating in the league and keeping the racing interesting, and hopefully you guys will show up next season.
Yeah, I plan on being here, and I hope we get even a bigger field because I do like these Formula multi-class races. I think they're quite fun and adds a little extra strategy and a little extra complexity to the race.
Yeah, yep. That's why these races are so much fun.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, Christian. Have a good night. Well, are you going to do the Spec Miatas?
I'm a little tired, so I'm just gonna watch. Thanks, guys.
All right. Catch you later. Have a good night. We'll see you next time.
And that was Christian Gabanka, who was lock steady in that very hard fight between himself and Zach Rivard. True sportsman there, saying that Rivard was racing him quite hard. I'll tell you what, that was an awesome fight as well. And on that point as well, I hope I'm back for this next season. That would be absolutely awesome. I would love to be nowhere else. I'm not sure if I said that correctly. Anyway, I think we see Jacob Schilling waiting in the interview waiting area, but I think we'll give him some time to qualify in the Spec Miatas that we have coming up. That qualifying session is going on as we speak. That's going to be an intense race here at Mid-Ohio. If it's anything like the Formula cars that we just had there a few moments ago, it's going to be absolutely hectic. So stay tuned here on Apex Racing TV. We have the Spec Miatas coming up. It's going to be an intense fight. Just better stay tuned here on Apex Racing TV. It's going to be nuts, and we'll be right back after these messages.
Are you struggling for consistency in your sim racing? Does your iRating look like a roller coaster? If so, we have good news for you. The way to get more consistent is to first understand what you're doing differently than the professionals. And VRS is the answer. With our competitive subscription, you will have the telemetry, setups, tutorials, and everything else you need to fully analyze your driving. Our data packs and the ability to compare your driving with the best in the world will show you exactly where to adjust your inputs, change your driving line, and shave seconds off of your lap times. And our powerful and precise Direct Force Pro wheelbase and precision pedals are being used by some of the world's best drivers. All these champions agree that VRS hardware is not just the best on the market, it's also priced well below the competition. So if you're looking to upgrade to direct drive and the best pedals in sim racing, VRS is your answer. If you want to get better, get faster, and make it happen sooner rather than later, you owe it to yourself to find out why so many people are switching to VRS. You'll be so glad that you did. Visit www.virtualracingschool.com and learn why the best use VRS.
Alrighty everyone, welcome back here to Apex Racing TV. We hope you enjoyed those brief little messages when we were switching over to this Spec Miata session. You know, these Spec Miatas have been a little bit of an oddity so far this season. Last season, we ran the Mazda MX-5 Cup cars that many iRacing rookies have run in as of late. These are the legacy Mazdas. I think they're from 2010, if my memory serves me correctly. They're a very interesting car. The gearbox I'm still kind of iffy on, mainly because I'm not very fast in driving these race cars, but we've seen some gearbox and some motor blow up so far this season. We've seen a whole lot of stuff. We've got a beautiful camera right now coming through the keyhole section. Shows you all the undulations that we have here at Mid-Ohio. It's a sneaker when it comes to the amount of elevation change around this circuit. It's in that specific region of Ohio where I've been in the past. I've driven through western Ohio, most of Ohio, western Pennsylvania. I've driven through that many occasions going out to the Solo Nationals out in Lincoln, Nebraska every single September, and it is very hilly, and we're seeing that right now. Josh Justice pretty much blind heading through turn number 7 there, so it shows you all the undulations that we have at this track. But these Spec Miatas, these cars have been a little bit of an oddball so far this season. We have 2 more of these races left to go here with the Spec Miatas. So now that we have a decent background of information when it comes to these cars, Charles, I'll ask you a little bit of a loaded question here at the top of the second half of the show. What do you think of these Spec Miatas and how they've been so far this season?
I mean, it's kind of a throwback, right? You know, as we've been kind of watching, it's got an old tire model, so it doesn't quite have the same, handling characteristics of the new one. Obviously, you mentioned the gearbox, and it's a little bit of a challenge when you're used to just the iRacing auto blip and auto clutch, and you just kind of hit the paddle and switch gears. Not so much with these. And you saw from the gyro cam how much body roll that these cars get from Josh Justice as he was going down in the Thunder Valley there. So so like I said, it's a little bit of a throwback car. It's a little challenging because it's it's a legacy car, and nobody really drives it. And so when Stevie came out and said we're going to run Spec Miatas this time as opposed to the MX-5 Cup cars, I'm sure people said yay, and then maybe not so much once we actually hit the track at Sebring with these cars. So I think it's been fun. I think it's obviously it's a little. I'm sitting here. I'm not challenged by it at all. I'm just sitting here watching the race and talking about it. But For these guys, it's something they have to a little bit of a learning curve, and they have to get used to it. As we say, Josh with Justice in front there with a big blink, he's just kind of disappeared. So I'm not sure if he's gone or just kind of gone. So we'll see if he comes back. But yeah, I think it's been fun. It's something different. Don't know if it'll last for next season or not, but we'll find out, I guess, in a couple of weeks.
UFO activity continues here from the Ray Esports Racing League. I'll tell you what, a whole lot of things that I have to say about these cars. Firstly, before the start of this current season that we've been in ever since a few months ago, there was a preseason Thunder event here from the Ray Esports Racing League. Got an opportunity to drive in one of those, made a complete ass of myself behind the wheel, proving why I'm better behind a microphone instead of behind the wheel. And what's funny about these cars is my rig is terrible. My sim rig is absolutely horrible. It's the same one I've had since 2018, and I was downshifting heading into Lime Rock in these cars, and I tried to go into third, but in doing so the bracket kind of broke on the H pattern shifter I had, so I just went forward and nearly slammed my chest and my face into my steering wheel, which would not have been ideal. I have a face for radio as is, but if I gave myself some sort of traumatic injury with that would not have been ideal. And secondly, you mentioned the body roll as well. My real life car is a 1985 Oldsmobile Cutlass Supreme with suspension that completely irons out bumps. I think the suspension on these spec Miatas is just a tiny bit harder, and I'll just leave it at that. So we're in the dying stages of this qualifying session. The checkered flag is coming out now, so that timed out beautifully. Hopefully the graphics on the broadcast synced up with that, with the checkered flag icon coming up from our end. Miles Crab is at the front at a 140.592, and he has a bit of a gap between himself and Andrew Wozencroft in P number 2. Those two were the ones leading the Formula 4s and the Formula Vs, and I will say, sadly, we don't have the points graphics as well, another technical issue, but I will say in the Spec Miata points, Miles Crab is at the front, 84 points on the board. Tom Laurie is in second at 76 points on the board, so with 8 points separating those two, and Tom Laurie all the way down in P6, while Miles Crab is at the front and on provisional pole with the checkered flag out in this qualifying session. Looking very good for Crab, even with one more race left to go after this one.
Yeah, he's kind of in the driver's seat, isn't he? He's just, he's out in front. He's sitting on pole. Laurie's a few spots behind, but you never can tell. It could be one of those races where you could money shift the car and blow the engine, and the next thing you know, you're sitting in the pits at the end of the race, and you're finishing somewhere toward the bottom. So so still got a 20-minute race that we've got to deal with, and we'll talk about the winners and losers at the end of that.
11 cars setting qualifying times and 20 minutes of fantastic racing right in front of us to wrap things off here tonight. And to put on that fantastic racing, you have to have some fantastic sponsors as well. And here with the Spec Miatas, we've had them for quite a long time here from the Ray Esports Racing League, that being Grassroots Motorsports. Built for true sports car enthusiasts, Grassroots Motorsports has one mission: to be your personal guide to the sports car world. Whether it be online at grassrootsmotorsports.com, in print, or at the track, the racers, mechanics, and car nerds at Grassroots Motorsports will take you behind the scenes of the racing world and teach you how to improve your car. Grassroots Motorsports has a taste of everything you may want out of this hobby that we all love. Whether you want to hear stories about 1,000 horsepower track monsters or cool street cruisers built in a driveway very similar to my Oldsmobile, they have got you covered. Grassroots also has a collection of staff-maintained project cars and a catalog of articles as well. Articles breaking down the ins and outs of cars ran in a garage with greasy hands rather than typed from behind a desk in a prim and proper office. If you'd like to read, learn, and be a part of the story, head on over to grassrootsmotorsports.com. We'd like to thank Grassroots Motorsports for being a proud partner of the Ray Esports Racing League, and we'll get the starting grid for you right about now. Miles Crab is going to be leading them to green, a 140.592. Not a whole lot of time between himself and Andrew Wozencroft, less than 3/10 in fact. We'll see if there's some close racing between those two. Josh Justice in the number 99 car, he's in P number 3, Seth Spallman in 4th, Corey Heffron in P5, and Tom Laurie will round out your first 3 rows.
Yeah, Michael Snow is in 7th, Wayne Buttermore in 8th, Mark Sherman in 9th, Joaquin Effinger in position 10, Joe Camilleri in 11th, Oliver Piatek in 12th, And rounding out your grid, Ray Esports royalty, Morgan, the kid, Burkhardt. It looks like he jumped in at the last minute, and can't tell if he's going to be on the grid or not. But if he is, he'll start from the back.
That's going to be a great storyline to follow. Morgan, of course, being a driver in the IMSA, I'm trying to think of the name. It's the IMSA Michelin Pilot Series, driving in a Hyundai in that category for Victor Gonzalez Racing, I believe. So I've said this on many Ray Esports broadcasts in the past. I sold him his first ever card all the way back in the fall of 2016. Was there at Solo Nationals in 2017, back when I was running in the JA category at the age of 12. He was 1 year behind me at 11, and my dad had to MacGyver a fix onto his card after he blew the chain off the thing during morning running there. But Morgan, fantastic driver. He has more talent in his fingers than I do in my entire body, so I guess I taught him well in those first little lessons I gave to him in my card. And funny little story about those preseason Thunder events, we had a bet that if I beat him in one of those races, he would give me back my card for the free charge of absolutely nothing. But with those stories out of the way, we can talk on this racing. The green flag is out and the drivers are on their way. It's a good start for Miles Crab, a good start for Andrew Wilsoncroft as well, but I think Crab will lead them into turn number 1, clears them comfortably. This is going to be tough heading through this first corner. These Spec Miatas are much bigger than the Formula cars we had. Some rally action already, and Josh Justice going for a spin on front of the road, and that's Tom Laurie getting caught up in that as well. That was a significant whack to the side of that Spec Miata car. Tom Laurie is going to be stopped on the side of the road, and here comes Morgan Burkhardt trying to negotiate the wounded car of Josh Justice there. A little bit of rally action, running wide, heading his way through turn number 1. Did not end for him well at all. So Morgan cleared that incident fairly clean. Laurie and Justice did not. They were going to be on the back foot. That is news to the ears of Miles Crab, who's locked steady in a close fight, championship fight between himself and the car that was involved in that incident, that being Tom Laurie. And this is going to be the replay of Justice. Clip that curb ran a little bit wide. You can see him trying to crank some more lock into that steering wheel. It's a cone massacre as he spins across the track. I gotta say, very lucky. Oh my God, we nearly saw a T-bone accident there. You can tell from my untimely constipation that sounded like. But man, that was incredibly lucky for all those drivers that there was only 2 cars involved in that heading through 1.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, just as you said, Justice runs a little wide. Couldn't collect the car, and just a little tap in the rear by Laurie. Obviously, the old tire model not doing them any favors, not being able to adhere to the new off-track physics. So around they go, and so it's going to be a game of catch-up. Fortunately, Laurie's still in the race, and he will be able to continue.
Race car.
Yeah, he does have some right rear damage. Yeah, pretty jacked up there. It's obviously as long as the tracking straight, and I really can't tell if it is or not, but it doesn't look like it is based on what I'm seeing.
Yeah, I don't think it is at all. That is that's a hoopty rod of a Spec Miata race car. That's I've seen very similar cars like that drive around the streets of Philadelphia, and ooh, nearly clipped that inside tire barrier. That was not ideal for Tom Laurie. All of this is not ideal. That is the strangest looking and saddest looking Spec Miata race car I've seen so far this season. Tom Laurie, according to our graphics, is right now up at the front. That is not correct. Hopefully we'll try and get that refreshed here in just a couple of moments time. We're having a small little graphical issue. We'll hope to try and get that fixed here in just a few moments time. Seth Spolman is locked steady, actually has a fight between behind him with Piatek and Heffron, so that's pretty close between those drivers right behind him. They're going side by side, heading their way into turn number 7, and this man, Andrew Wilsoncroft, is running P2 on the racetrack, running in effectively no man's land as Crab is still leading it, and he has a pretty decent gap to himself and Spolman there in P number 4, at least according to our graphics, or P3, net P3 on the racetrack. So Wilsoncroft right now running in a good position, much better than he was doing in that Formula V race, it must be said. However, we may see him try and challenge Crab for the win here in the not too distant future. Morgan Burkhardt making his way up through the field, trying to battle hard with Wayne Buttermore heading through turn at number 13. Buttermore backs out of it, and that's Burkhardt moving his way up into P at number 9. That's Heffron going for a spin. So I think there may have been a little bit of contact in that fight between himself and Piatek as they went through that carousel. Heffron going very slowly, and there's a whole lot of damage on the front end of that Spec Miata race car.
Yeah, it looks like there was some contact, and we'll get a look here as we're riding on board with him, and I believe that is the 42 car of Spolman. And yeah, and then to add insult to injury, a little T-bone action there through the carousel, and yep, wrecked front end of the car. So that's going to make life very difficult for Heffron, as we see we're Wayne Buttermore and Morgan Burkhardt running down the straight going into China Beach.
Ooh, it's going to be close between these two going down the back straightaway. Battle-less late breakers. Morgan Burkhardt going to pull away as soon as they get onto the brakes, and a little bit of sideways action there. He's a professional. He knows what he's doing, and he gets that move done. Some rally action between Effinger and Sherman farther in the back, and a little bit of contact made as well, as Effinger has been spun around by Sherman. I saw those two going off the track together. It looked like some kind of, it was definitely a synchronized maneuver that they pulled off. I wouldn't say it was a good or clean maneuver, and we're going to take a look at the replay to see that maneuver in question heading into turn number 6, giving the first visit to China Beach that we've seen so far this evening. And Effinger with that was a big dive. Both of them really overshot that corner. I don't think there's a whole lot of contact between Sherman and Effinger, so I think maybe Sherman just tried to goose onto the throttle just to avoid any sort of rear end contact.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. It looked like Effinger had the plan to just move to the inside and try to late break going into China Beach. And Sherman on the outside said, I can break as late as you can. And neither one of them were able to navigate the corner successfully. And so they both went off deep. But yeah, I think maybe a slight tap as they were trying to get their cars collected to get back on track. But no harm, no foul. They'll continue racing.
And they are continuing racing. However, they're a little bit farther behind this man, Miles Kribe, who's still leading it at the beginning of lap number 4. We're over a quarter of the way into this race. The driver of the 131 car started this race from the pole. He's developed a 1.8 and teetering on 2-second gap between himself and Andrew Wozencroft right now. So a little bit spread out farther towards the north end of this field right now, trying to look to see what kind of battles that we have brewing on our hands. For being honest, it doesn't really look like there's a whole lot of cars very close to each other. We may see a battle brewing between Burkhardt and Spolman. Burkhardt started the race actually from the pits. He didn't even take to the grid, so he started the race down pit lane, has made his way up into P number 6. So we may see him try and reel in Seth Spolman between now and the end of this. I think this is a very good question to ask now that we're coming up towards that halfway mark of this race. Charles, how far do you think Morgan can make his way up through the field?
Well, I was sitting there looking at it, and he's running basically the same pace as Crab up front. So he's going to be able to collect Spolman and Snow, I think, in short order. As you see him, he's basically just a few car lengths behind Spolman now. So I think he's going to get these guys, but I think once, as it just now sets the fastest lap of the race with a 40.19. So he's about a half second faster as he's just taking every inch of the track and then some. He's about a half second faster than Crab the last lap. But he's got a 13-second deficit to make up. So he'll get these two, I think, pretty quickly. But then it's going to be some work to try and get up to the front.
Trying to negotiate all the bumps, all the patches in the road, and all the undulations as well. Morgan Burkhardt has diminished that gap between himself and Spolman, looking to try and get the move done through the kink of turn number 5. They're going to be side by side at the end of this straightaway. I think Burkhardt clears them before they even think about getting onto that stop pedal. Morgan Burkhardt makes his way up into P number 5. Nicely played. Next up, farther up the road, is a P4 runner of Michael Snow, the driver of the 077 car. Running in P number 4, I think he is actually, he's up 3 spots so far, so nicely played from the driver of the number 077 car. And just looking through our live timing screen, surprisingly so, I mean, Burkhardt up 8 spots, Piatek, though, up 9, so a lot of drivers cutting their way through the field like a hot knife through butter early on.
Yeah, Piatek's doing a good job, obviously, as well. Started on the grid, so he didn't have that 4 or 5 second delay that Burkhardt did, as he came out from the pits. That was a little iffy there by Snow, but was able to collect the car and navigate the corner. Gave Burkhardt the inside line. So nice, easy pass around. And so now the work starts because he's got about an 8-second gap to catch up to Piatek in P3.
That is going to be a very hard fight. You can see those cars negotiating the keyhole a little bit farther up the road. That section of the track is really teasing because if that chicane wasn't there and you just saw a car going into the braking zone and turning into the keyhole right as you're thinking about getting onto the brakes, you'd be like, oh yeah, it's barely any air separating us too. But with that chicane, with that little detour that they have right before the keyhole, it messes with your mind a little bit. So that's it's certainly something that Morgan Burkhardt is going to be seeing between now and the end of this. It's not an insurmountable gap, and again, we are talking about a very talented race car driver. Had the pleasure of battling with him in that preseason Thunder race, and of course, me being the loudmouth that I am, instead of a driver, I ended up crashing out of that battle and lost that race. So yeah, before I beat on myself too hard, hey, you got a little bit of self-deprecation humor in these broadcasts. I certainly do that week in and week out. We're following Olivier Piatek there, so I think we may have butchered that pronunciation. I have to add a little bit of a French flair. The driver of the 174 car is still running in P3 and maybe reeling in Andrew Rosencroft. The gap between those two is about 1.5 seconds, so Andrew Rosencroft may be feeling the pressure soon.
Yeah, the gap is really starting to close down a little bit. Piatek's obviously got a bit of pace, as you can see the lap time, 0.6 of a second that lap. So he's definitely closing up that stagger, and it's going to be it's going to be easy. It's going to be a quick catch, but then you got to make that pass. And Rosencroft is in P2 for a reason. He's got good pace on the car, so it's going to be a little bit of a challenge to get by. And so we'll see if he's able to do that, and then he can maybe start tracking down the leader.
So we're just over the halfway mark of this race as we see Burkhardt absolutely send it heading through that chicane right before the keyhole. Lots of challenging corners on this track. Turn 1 is no exception as we see Miles Crabbe continuing to lead this race, now extending that gap to about 3 seconds over Rosencroft down there in P number 2. Still great results for all of them, and Miles Crabbe at this point, he's just having what would be a Tuesday night cruise here. I nearly said Sunday night cruise. If you're in the mood for a Sunday night cruise, you want to check out the Weekend Warrior series here on Apex Racing TV. But I think while we're in a little bit of a lull in this race, let's have a chat with a driver that's been waiting in the interview waiting area for quite some time. We'll bring in Josh Justice here, see if he wants to have a little bit of a chat during this race. Josh Justice, a not ideal start to your evening. We saw you had some technical difficulties right before the start of this race. So was that part of the reason why it was a very unfortunate beginning to tonight?
Yeah, I mean, the Formula B race was fantastic, a great deal of fun. We had that battle going all week long. After getting that, we had a 4-car breakaway, and then turn with 3-car breakaway, and the third guy was just at like the absolute edge of the lap lane. So, I just went there and I just put Jacob and did not go side by side at all, and we just stayed, nose to tail drafting until we were safely out of distance of the guy in third. And then with 2 laps to go, well, I got the end of 3 laps to go, he basically just sandbagged the final turn and put me in front of him with 2 laps to go. And so I knew what he was going to do. I knew he was going to try to draft me down the straight and make the pass. And what I did was, I'm like, well, if you're going to play games, I'll play game 2. And I just went into the hairpin really wide and basically sandbagging the hairpin a little bit. So he wasn't able to get like nose to tail with me and get behind me and draft. He was inside of me, and that's when I finally hit the gas. So we were side by side all the way down the straightaway, with me on the left and on the outside of China Beach, but the inside of the following turn. And so it went exactly the way I planned it.
And Josh, it's not ideal the other way that your race went here in the Spec Miatas, but congratulations on how well that Formula race went earlier on this evening. We'll let you guys, we have a battle forming right now between Piatek and Wozencroft. Thanks for joining us for a quick little chat as Piatek gets a move done to move into P number 2. Nicely played heading into turn number 1 from the driver of the 174 car. We may see a challenge back here with Wozencroft heading into turn number 2 and 3. Just saw them go through the chicane there. So Josh, quick little question before we let you go for the evening. What do you think of that chicane here on this layout?
I think the chicane actually makes the track a little more interesting. It makes it easier in a way because you don't have the problem in the keyhole, like from a hot napping perspective. The downside is you kind of lose the passing zone. So it's much easier to take the keyhole because of the elevation change is kind of different. And you're approaching it at a bit of an angle. And so you're much likely to see the fin on the entry of the keyhole. Well, no, you saw the Weekend Warrior race at Mid-Ohio. People were finning in the keyhole. Nobody's finning in the keyhole in that. So you're much more consistent, it's easier to drive, but it actually gives you a bit more of a tactical setup, or the ability to have more tactical setup going in the keyhole when you're in the lower cars, like side-by-side racing hard. It's a real shame I didn't get to participate in the Miata because of the hardware issue. I apologize to Tom for taking them out, but there was really nothing I could do.
Josh, we always appreciate your insight here on this broadcast. We always love having a chat with you. Tough that the Spec Miata race didn't go quite as you had in mind, but hopefully next time out at Watkins Glen, you have a much better Miata race there. Thank you for joining us, man. Always love to have a chat with you.
Absolutely, and I'm definitely looking forward to Watkins Glen, both in the Miata and the Spec Racer 4 season finale for everything, and hopefully I can keep my podium in the Spec Racer.
You are a Spec Racer 4 driver in real life, so you're going to try and carry that skill set in real life over into the sim. Good luck next week, man. It was nice to have a chat with you. And that was Josh Justice, who sadly didn't go as well as he had in mind in that Spec Miata race that we have currently going on right now. However, in the Formula Vs, it went much better for him. So Charles, as I've been having that chat with Josh Justice, how has this Formula V race developed? Not the Formula Vs.
Yeah.
The Formula Vs were earlier. How's the Spec Miata race developed?
Well, Piatek was able to get by Wozencroft coming through the front stretch. Pretty easy pass. I think Wozencroft wasn't really in a position. I think Piatek got a really good run out of the final corner to take the spot. Burkhardt is doing his best to try and make up the gap, but I don't think he's going to have enough time. He's made up several seconds since we talked about it earlier, but as we get a replay here, yeah, just a nice move to the inside. Looks like Wozencroft maybe drifted a little bit wide. Piatek was nice, easy into the corner, sets the car, and is able to make the pass to jump up into P2. He, however, is not gaining time on Crab, so Crab is out comfortably 4.8 seconds over the lead. Like I said, Burkhardt is knocked about 3 seconds off of the gap, but it's going to be too little too late with just a couple of laps left in the race and a 10.5 second deficit. He's not going to get up there. I'm sure he's going to make it to challenge for a podium position, but he's had a good run, and I'm sure he's just out here having fun. So if he was serious about it, he would have come out there and set a lap time, probably put it on pole, and just kind of walked away from everybody.
Well, he's making it interesting, that's for darn sure, and you gotta give him credit for at least joining us here tonight. You always love seeing Morgan run here, and it's always good to have some drivers that are very fast starting towards the back of the field. We don't even have to bribe them to do that either. It's just nice to have drivers like Zach Rivarda and Morgan Burkhardt giving us a whole lot of interesting stuff to talk about during these races. Michael Snow has still been maintaining a pretty decent position running in P number 5. However, he may soon fall Russell into the crutches of Seth Bowman. Those two are separated by about a second and a half here on lap number 11. We will be taking the white flag here in the not too distant future. So I wonder, is it too little too late for Spolman, or do you think these two are going to be close towards the end?
I mean, it looks like it's going to be pretty close. Now, Snow had a faster last lap. So obviously, Spolman hasn't been able to make up. It's a second and a half between the two cars. So it's going to take a little bit of work and maybe a mistake out of Snow in order for Spolman to get up there and challenge him, or he's going to have to just really nail down a fantastic lap here in the final lap of the race. So yeah, it'd be interesting to watch. It's probably the closest battle on track that we've got. Looks like everybody else is spread out. I'll take that back. Camilleri and Sherman is only about 0.6 of a second, so that might be a battle for position a little further down the order. But you know, every point counts, and everybody's trying to battle to finish as best they can. As you kind of see Sherman just kind of taking a little bit of wider line coming through the carousel. It looks like he gets a good run out of the final corner, is able to just kind of hold off Camilleri there for the time being. I'm sorry, Camilleri holding off Sherman. Get him in the right order this time.
So we are on the white flag here, and I think I will correct something I've been saying all throughout this broadcast. The layout that we're using was in use all the way up until 1989. That was the final run. That was a final ever IndyCar race that was run with that chicane instead of that straight flat-out blast between turns 1 and 2, that being the keyhole. You can see Joaquin Effinger running in P at number 10. Funnily enough, Teo Fabi, in I believe the only ever IndyCar win for the Porsche IndyCar program, was a driver that won on the final IndyCar race at this version of Mid-Ohio. Miles Crabb, it looks like he's going to win here. I doubt very highly I jinxed him. He's rounding his way around the carousel, round his way through turn number 15. Miles Crabb had probably the easiest drive of the season to win here at Mid-Ohio. The gap between himself and Olivier Piatek in P at number 2 is a vast yawning chasm. It wasn't the same between Piatek and Wozencroft, though. Those two were pretty close, and Morgan Burkhardt still tried to reel them in towards the end of this race, but it was too little too late. Maybe if we had 40 minutes and he actually set a qualifying time and then start this race from the pits, it would have been a different story. But hey, he's out here trying to have some fun. He also grabbed the fastest lap of the race by a country mile as well, of 40.855. That is a blisteringly quick lap time. Actually, no, that was his last lap. It was a 40.194 that grabbed him the fastest lap of the race. That is just ridiculously quick from Morgan Burkhardt. He ends up in P number 4. I think Joel Camilleri and Mark Sherman are the next two drivers to take the checkered flag here, which they have done right now. So we're waiting for Joaquin Effinger and Tom Laurie. Tom, you gotta feel bad for the man, because he was close to Miles Crabb entering this race when it comes to that championship. But with that incident that happened at the very start of this race that turned his MX-5 Cup car into a hoopty rod, Tom Laurie is gonna end up this race in P number 11. Not ideal. It's gonna be the Miles, much like this race, it's probably gonna be the Miles Crabb show when it comes to deciding the champion in the Spec Miata category next time out at the Glen. And we're seeing some formation action here between Spolman and Wayne Buttermore. So they're side by side going down the back straightaway after the checkered flag has flown here this evening. I think we will briefly take a look at the results, and Charles, I'll let you handle the results here tonight.
Absolutely. So we'll get those results pulled up here. And your race winner, as we talked about earlier, Miles Crabb, with a 5.5 second winning margin over Olivier Piatek. Sorry about that. Andrew Wozencroft in 3rd gets the final podium position. Morgan Burkhardt in 4th. Michael Snow in 5th. Seth Bowman in 6th. Wayne Buttermore P7. Joe Camilleri, Mark Sherman P8 and P9. Joaquin Effinger rounds out your top 10. Tom Laurie still on the lead lap, but obviously with the early race incident with Justice, finishing 11th. Corey Heffron out early, and Josh Justice, as we said, technical issues before the race and at the start of the race, and he is our P13 and final car on the grid.
So those are your results from the Spec Miata race, the second to last Spec Miata race of this season 11 of the Ray Esports Racing League. And I think before we wrap things up, we have some drivers waiting in the interview waiting area. I think Charles, I'll let you do the honors and possibly have a chat with our race winner, that being Miles Crabb.
Yeah, let's talk to Miles. Miles, congratulations on the race win, and we think the championship as well in the Spec Miata. So congratulations on a good race and a good season. And so let's talk about it. I mean, it was a pretty jumped out to a pretty quick lead and managed to just kind of ride along and keep that gap and stretch it when you could, and a pretty comfortable win for you tonight.
Yeah, I don't know where that came from. Yeah, unfortunately, I think Tom had an incident on the first lap, and I wish it would have been a closer fight, but by my math, I got it. Usually I'm terrible at Mid-Ohio. Like my FF performance was more indicative of normally where I'm at, and for some reason, my baseline just max camber setup worked perfectly for this weather or something. I don't know. I did one lap and was like, oh, this is going to be good, and I didn't realize how good it actually was. And good job on Wozy. He found a lot of speed. And my heart sank when Morgan joined the session like 30 seconds before qualifying was over. It was like, okay, as long as he's like 4 seconds back after 2 laps, I think I can hold him off.
Yeah, I know that pain, Miles. I experienced that pain in the preseason race here, so I know that pain.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, just from Morgan's history in the series, realizes that pain is when they see his name on the grid. It's like, oh, so we've got a fight tonight. So we've got to ask this: you prefer chicane or no chicane at Mid-Ohio?
No chicane. Petition that nobody ever run this course ever. I spent the weekend at Mid-Ohio trying to help set up a car for this layout with the new asphalt. It was miserable. We looked like we were clueless. Like, I knew that John LaRue was going to beat us, but I didn't expect us to be worse than everybody. There was one guy who's like his first event we beat, but that's not. I'm not claiming that as a victory. No, pro course always and forever.
Well, there you go. That's a pretty passionate response there. So what do you think about one more question here is, what do you think about the Spec Miata versus the MX-5 that we've ran in seasons past?
The MX-5 or the MX-5 Cup car, the Spec Miata. Why are they both named the same thing? This car is a lot more stable, or it feels more stable. I enjoy this car more than the Global MX-5 Cup car. I pulled data a couple seasons ago, and the MX-5 Cup car in iRacing takes turn 1 at the same speed as an Atlantic, which just doesn't feel right and is weird, and we still run slow lap times, but the apex speeds was the same. So I much prefer this one just because it feels a little bit more like a Miata. I get the why people love the Global MX-5 car. It's like the Global car is like the Ford. You can slide it completely sideways and save it. The Formula Ford, not the Spec Racer.
Right.
You can get it totally tail happy and just power down and throttle through it, and everything's fine. This car, it gets tail happy, but it's kind of that just lazy rotation. This car drives a whole lot more like a Mustang, and I used to drive a Mustang, so it all kind of fits. So I prefer this car, but I also had 11 years of driving this car before they introduced the Global MX-5 car. But both are fun.
There you go. All right, so we'll see you. I'm assuming next week for the final round at Watkins Glen.
Absolutely, that's one of my favorite racetracks.
Yeah, I think that's pretty standard for everybody. So, hey, Miles, congratulations, and we'll talk to you next week, hopefully.
Yeah, absolutely. And hi, everyone. Hi, Jessica. Hi, Mom. Hi, Steven. Hey, Ren. And thank you all for broadcasting. Thank you, Stevie, for putting this stuff on.
All right. Thank you, Miles.
Oh, and Miles, quickly before we let you go here, I just heard some word in the other Ray Esports Discord server. It is official. You are the Formula Ford champion from the season, so congratulations on that.
Thank you. That's by elimination, unfortunately. I wish Jake could have run around for this, and Zach for the whole season. I'd like to race them. I was going to try and give Zach my best run tonight, and I had a big slide and then got held up by some V's, and it was all over. But thank you. I might have pulled off the hat trick again because I have a 31-point lead in Spec Racer, and I think you can only score 30 points in an event. But yeah, no, thank y'all. It's always fun running this series.
Hey, regardless of how you get the championship, it's always an excuse to buy some champagne. So congratulations, Miles.
Thanks.
That was Miles Crabb, our Formula 4 champion from this season, and we'll bring in Andrew Wozencroft for a quick little chat before we wrap things up. Andrew, congratulations on the P2 run in the Spec Miatas. It was probably a boring race from your perspective, so just talk us through it here tonight.
Yeah, no problem. I'm not sure if I came two or third. Yeah, I think Oliver got third. But I'll take second if you're willing to give it to. Don't worry about it.
It's the honorary P2. That's
exactly
just my brain being frazzled after an hour and a half on the air.
No, totally. I wasn't sure maybe he had a penalty when you said that. So, but no, Oliver had pace, and I know he had an early incident. And we were actually chatting on the comms, and he was running the baseline full weight fuel, and that made me feel a bit unspirited. But no, good drive, but big shout out to Miles. Morgan was in this race, and we watched him all this weekend at the Super Tour, and I felt like he was Bobby Sachs. And I was chasing him, and he just kept pulling away. So I think I get what Morgan felt like a little bit. But it was a lot of fun.
There's a lot of fun here with these Spec Miatas. We've seen a whole load of racing from them this season. We'll ask you some opinion questions before we let you go here this evening. What do you think of the chicane here at this track? You like it, don't like it? Mixed opinions?
No, it's great. It changes the dynamic. And coming into the keyhole, and it gets the car light, and you have to be very sensitive on the braking. I personally feel like with the keyhole, it's more of a West Coast track. I've noticed a huge difference between the East and the West, and I prefer that in my opinion. But then it really matters because you have that long back straight, and so if you don't have a good exit or a good run, you're done.
And another opinion question as well. We only have one more Spec Miata race left to go. So what do you think of these Spec Miatas compared to the old MX-5s?
I love it. I love driving an actual gear shift. A 5-6 speed. I don't think we get in the 6 very often except Daytona. But I love it. It's great practice for my real car. I'm racing this weekend at Sonoma. So just to be able to drive with these guys and get some practice always helps. But I prefer this over the MX, the ND. Because if I do enough paddles, I want something with a gear shift and a clutch.
So
and we are going to be running this weekend at Sonoma, you said. So would you like to talk to viewers about that? Yeah,
I was about to ask. I think Sonoma went through a repave, didn't it?
It did, and it's 2 seconds faster. Same as kind of what would happen at Laguna. So this will be my first time on the repaved. I'm looking forward to it. It's my home track. I'm actually driving another car, which is a little bit better than mine, so I'm optimistic. So we'll see what happens, if this kind of helps. But the weather should be good, pavement should be good, so it's just going to be driver error if I mess up.
That's going to be a good weekend of racing action, I feel, so I'll probably have to try and find that stream on YouTube or wherever it may be in the wide world of the internet. So Andrew Wozencroft, good luck in that race coming up this weekend. Congratulations on the P3 run, the podium finish here in the Spec Miatas. Is there anyone you want to give a thanks to or shout out?
Yeah, always. First, huge shout out to Apex. I love watching these replays. To the three of you, always doing a great job. To our sponsors, to Stevie, thank you, Stevie. I mean, this is amazing. It's made us all better. To the team I race with every week here, they're such a good group. And finally, to my parents for watching, and for my kids, and for anybody else out there in TV land, YouTube land, I really appreciate you watching too. So that was awesome.
Alrighty, well, Andrew, congratulations on the P3 run. As I said, hope to see you next time out at the Glen in a week's time. Thank you for joining us.
Can't wait, guys. Have a great week. See ya.
Yeah, that was Andrew Wozencroft, who ends up this race in P number 3. Even though I said P number 2 earlier, he would definitely take that if it was on the cards for him. So Watkins Glen in 1 week's time, Charles. We have one more Spec Miata and one more Spec Racer Ford race. How's that racing going to be in a week's time? That is going to be a draft fest, don't you think?
Oh God, yeah. If you've never seen the Spec Racers at Watkins, it is, and I don't know what layout we're going to be using, So it's if we've got a bus stop or not, and that's going to make a difference. But just fantastic racing. My guess is we'll probably be using the cup, the short layout, because we're only running 20-minute races. So if we did the long layout, it may be a 5 or 6 lap race. So, but no, Watkins is my favorite track by far. The spec racers always put on a good show. Yeah, the draft is amazing. It's immense at Watkins. The run they're going to get through the S's going down the backstretch toward the bus stop is just it's a dive bomber's heaven. So it's going to be fun to watch that. And but I thought this was a really good race. We had some really good battles on track. I do like Mid Ohio. It's growing on me the more I come in and watch or drive this track. It's kind of that CTMP kind of feel for me, where you really have to work to get better at this track. And strangely enough, mixed results on chicane or no chicane. So I thought that was kind of strange also. So anyway, so yeah, had a great race tonight. Looking forward to the final round next week.
Well, that is actually going to be on the boot layout, so we are running on the longer Watkins Glen configuration. That's going to be one heck of a race in a week's time, so anyone watching the stream here on Apex Racing TV gives you more of a reason to subscribe and stay up to date of everything going on here on Apex Racing TV. We've got this series every single Tuesday. We've got one more broadcast from the normal races, and then we have our extended version for the Ray Esports runoffs. That'll be on June the 4th at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway Road Course. That is going to be a good race as well. Slipstream Fest, that is going to be nuts heading into turn number 1, especially on lap 1. Good Lord, I'm just picturing in my head already. We also have the sister series of these as well, that being the Formula Ford and Spec Racer Ford Weekend Warriors every single Sunday. But if you're in the mood for some stuff about the SCCA towards the end of the week, you should probably check out the Inside the SCCA podcast as well, as part of the RacingWire Podcast Network. And episodes of that show drop every single Friday, so you can listen to it on your way to the racetrack. We've got a whole lot of stuff day in and day out, week in and week out here on Apex Racing TV. Again, as I said earlier, gives you more of a reason. Hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell as well, so you never miss a single thing here on Apex Racing TV. But I think for this broadcast here this evening, that will do it. So for myself, Ron Mons, Charles Bichelle joining me in the commentary booth, and Josh Wilkie doing a wonderful job working all the cameras in the virtual production hauler. As I hit my phone and probably break it, I say thank you all so very much for watching. Our congratulations go out to Josh Justice, our Formula V champion from season 11, as well as Miles Crabb, our Formula Ford champion. And we'll see you all again for the final race of the normal season in 1 week's time.
Are you struggling for consistency in your sim racing? Does your iRating look like a roller coaster? If so, we have good news for you. The way to get more consistent is to first understand what you're doing differently than the professionals. And VRS is the answer. With our competitive subscription, you will have the telemetry, setups, tutorials, and everything else you need to fully analyze your driving. Our data packs and the ability to compare your driving with the best in the world will show you exactly where to adjust your inputs, change your driving line, and shave seconds off of your lap times. And our powerful and precise Direct Force Pro wheelbase and precision pedals are being used by some of the world's best drivers. All these champions agree that VRS hardware is not just the best on the market, it's also priced well below the competition. So if you're looking to upgrade to direct drive and the best pedals in sim racing, VRS is your answer. If you want to get better, get faster, and make it happen sooner rather than later, you owe it to yourself to find out why so many people are switching to VRS. You'll be so glad that you did. Visit www.virtualracingschool.com and learn why the best use VRS.